Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin here today, please make sure that you like and subscribe because it really does help us out over here. And it also helps us reach others in need of assistance with these topics. So what we're going to be going over today is part 3 of our long division series. So we are going to do 2 problems, and these are going to be a little bit different than the first 2 parts because the first 2 parts we were dividing by a single digit number. So here we are going to be dividing by 12 and then 21. So this is how you do 2-digit numbers. Really no difference between the 2 digits and the 1-digit numbers. The 2-digit numbers are a little bit harder to do. All right. So let's start with our first one here. We're taking 36,102, dividing it by 12. And we're going to do exactly the same procedure as we did before, where you look at each number one at a time, drop it down, and so on and so on. So how many times does 12 go into 3 without going over? Well, 1 times 12 is 12. Well, that's over 3 already. So can't be over 3. So we're going to have to go with 0. So 0 times 12 gives me 0. Subtracting off here, 3 minus 0 gives me 3. And just like before, you're going to drop that number, that next number down, and that 3 becomes 36. So how many times does 12 go into 36? Well, 12 goes into 36. Let's see here. Without going over, 2 times 12 gives me 24. 3 times 12 gives me exactly 36. That's not going over. So 12 goes into 36 exactly 3 times, which is nice. So 3 times 12, 36. Subtract that off from the previous 36, and we are left with 0. That is a 0, by the way. And then next time, we just drop, our next one, sorry, we just drop a 1 down. Well, how many times does 12 go into 1 without going over? Well, 12 is already over 1, just like before where it was already over 3. So we're going to have to put a 0 there. So 0 times 12 is 0. So I'm left with 1 here. Well, we're going to have to drop the next number, which is a 0. And that gives me 10 now. Well, look what happened again. How many times does 12 go into 10 without going over? Well, 12 is already larger than 10. Anytime your number is already larger than number right here, you have to put a 0 because it cannot be over that number. If you were to put a 1 here, this would be 12, and you would be a negative then. So 0 times 12, once again, is 0. So that is 10. Well, next one up, drop the 2 down. And we're at 102. Well, how many times does 12 go into 102? Well, let's see. Well, 12 times 9 gives me 108. Well, that's over 102, so let's back it down. 12 times 8 gives me 96. Well, that's about as close as I can get to 102 without going over. So I'm going to put an 8 directly above my drops number of 2. 8 times 12 gives me 96. Subtract that from the 102. And what am I left with? I am left with 6. And I have no more numbers to drop. So whatever is left here at the very end, that is my remainder. And we abbreviate remainder with the little r. So that would be my answer, but there's always a way to check these long division problems, and that is just to multiply your answer by the number you are dividing by. Just leave out the remainder until the very end. So let's take 3,008, leave off the front 0, and times it by 12. Well, we're going to have to do a little bit of long multiplication here. So 2 times 8 gives me 16. Pop it up there. 2 times 0 is 0, plus the 1. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 3, which is 6. So I'm left with 60, 16 in my first line. And then moving over to the 1. 1 times 8, 8, 0, 0, and then 3. So what do I have here? I have 3, 6, 0, 9, 6. Oh, but that's not my answer. Well, remember, we have that remainder up there. So you just add back in the remainder. So this becomes 360. Oh, sorry. 36102, because that's 12, goes up to 10, and then boom, 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 boom. So we end up with 36,102, which was what our original number was. So our math checks out. Now, in writing your final answer, you could write it as, let me leave a little box right here. You could write your final answer as 3008 with a remainder of 6, or you could write it as this, 3008, and then you take your remainder and divide it by your dividing number, which this one is 12. Or you could take it a little further, because 6 over 12 is 1/2. Any of those three responses would be a correct answer. Just keep in mind that when you're dealing with these larger numbers, your remainder should always be smaller than your dividing number. If you're getting a remainder that's larger than your dividing number, you did something wrong somewhere throughout this long division. So maybe have to go back and find that error. All right, so that's my first one. Let's draw a little bit of a division line here between these two problems. And let's do the second one in blue. All right. So for this one, well, it looks like we got about 4 million something divided by 21. That's going to be the same procedure. Just look at each number. You're going to drop them individually when you get to that point. Well, how many times does 21 go into 4? Well, once again, 21 is already over 4. So we have to do a 0 there. So 21 times 0 gives me 0. So I'm left with 4. Drop the next number down. 4 becomes 47. How many times does 21 go into 47? Well, 21 by 2 gives me 42. 21 by 3 gives me 63. Remember, you cannot go over this number, so 42 is my best answer here. So that means I'm going to have to write a 2 directly above the number I just dropped, which was 7. So 2 times 21 gives me 42. Subtract that from 47, and I am left with a 5. So just repeat the process, drop the next number, which happens to be a 9. So now 5 becomes 59. Well, how many times does 21 go into 59 without going over? Well, 3 is 63, that's over, so we have to go to the lower one, which is 2 again. So put the 2 right above the number I just dropped. 2 times 21 gives me 42. Subtract that from 59, and what do I get? I get 17. Well, ready for the next number of 8, drop it down. 17 becomes 178. You don't want to see those triple digit numbers. It makes it a little bit more difficult. Well, let's see how many times 21 goes into 178. Well, 21 by 7 is 147. 21 by 8 is 168. Well, we're not over that yet. We're getting close. And 21 by 9 will put us over at 189. So it looks like we're going to have to go by 8 to be under the 178. So 8 times 21 is 168. Subtract that off, and we are left with exactly 10. Well, drop the next number, which is a 6. So how many times does 21 go into 106? Well, let's do a little bit more math here. 21 by 4 gives me 84. We're not over yet, so let's try 21 by 5. And 21 by 5 gives me 105. Ooh, that's really close, so that'll be really good. So we're going to have to take this and put a 5 above the number we just dropped. So 5 times 21 gives me 105. Minus that off, and we're left with 1. Hey, I like seeing those smaller numbers popping up here. So let's drop the next number now, since we're ready. And 1 becomes 10. Well, 21 is already over 10. So anytime this number is over this number down here, you have to put a 0 up here, because it can't be over that number. So 0 times 21 is 0. So I'm left with 10, and I'm going to have to scroll down just a hair here to finish off this problem. All righty. So we're going to have to drop our very last one, which is 2 all the way down here. And this becomes 102. Well, how many times does 21 go into 102 without going over? Well, at 5, we were at 105. Oh, so close, but just right over it. So you're going to have to back it down to the next smaller number, which is 4. So put that right above the number you just dropped. 4 times 21 gives me 84. I have no more numbers at the top here, so whatever I get here will be my remainder. So 102 minus off 84 gives me 18. So it's a good sign that my remainder is less than my dividing number. So a remainder of 18. So this would be my answer up here. Well, as I said, there's always a way to check your answer to make sure that you are correct by not using a calculator. It's the whole purpose of long division, not using a calculator. So we're going to take our answer of 228,504, and we're going to multiply that by the 21. So 2 stages here. We're going to have to multiply through by the 1, multiply through by the 2. So we have 4, 1 times 0, 1, 1 times that is 5, 1 times that is 8, 1 times that is 2, 1 times that is 2. Pretty simple right there. And then basically multiply this whole thing by 2 then. So then we have 8, and then we have 0, and then we have 10 right here. Add the 1. Oop, lost the pin. Hang on one second. And then right here we had the 0, and then right here we had another 0. And then over here we're going to have this with a 7, and then this with a 5, and then lastly 2 over here with another 2, which gives me 4. So then we're just going to add these two together, and we end up with 4,798,600 and, oh, sorry, went a little too far there. 798,584. And then lastly, we're going to add back in our remainder, which was 18. And we end up with 4,798,602, which was our original number we were dividing by. So our math checks out right there. So in writing your answer for the second part, you could write it like this. So we could write it as 228,504 with a remainder of 18, or it could be 228,504, 18 over 21, which also simplifies down to 228,504 and 6/7. Any one of those three would be an acceptable answer. The easiest one, of course, is just to leave the remainder symbol right here, or take your remainder and divide it by your original dividing number. Keeping in mind that your dividing or your remainder cannot be over your original dividing number. So 18 is under 21, so we're okay. So I hope this video was helpful. And if you want to see more problem solved this Friday, please check out the other videos on our channel. Also, if you haven't done so already, please like this video, leave a positive comment below, and subscribe to the channel because it does help us out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.